Chro, start the YouTube video here. Bam. Alright, so this is going to be a bit of my Blizzcon review. And now, usually because I'm gonna name this video something pretty gimmicky to see what I can get views on. But normally I stay away from speculation. But when the speculation starts to happen, I'm like, well, what if that happened? And instead of speculating based on like the video evidence and whatnot, I'm just gonna be like, well, what happens if they did do that system? What could come of it? Yeah, so clickbait. So basically the clickbait of this video is eventually they're gonna have to watch through like a half hour of shit first. I'm thinking they may get rid of roll queue, sorta, for Overwatch 2. And we'll have to go into the details after, once we get to that part. But yeah, there's some subtle things that I'm thinking of with Overwatch 2, and I'll explain them on stream, and I'm really curious what other people think, because I may be crazy, or maybe I'm looking too deep into it. But, yeah. So...
or we'll do a concept painting of certain things based on that.
Tell me,
we try to draw inspiration.
Is this a good sound to my voice ratio?
One of our environment artists had just taken a trip to Rome, and he returned with thousands of pictures and was so excited.
It's fine. Okay, so we're just gonna skip over this artwork stuff. We're just gonna skip over some of the a bit quiet. I need to be a bit louder, or they need to be a bit quieter?
Why don't you have the honor?
So,
Why don't you reveal...
they need to be louder? Okay, I lost my spot. God damn it.
More engaging, and some of this was...
Would show up.
Where are we at? Come on, Jeff.
That we're trying to make with some of our different locations.
Art Deco style.
I was at 117. Thank you.
We have to
play.
Does this sound better?
Heroes,
How about now?
game modes, major story beats.
I'm talking, and they're talking. Let's see what it sounds like. My chat is telling me if it's good. Hunger Pang says good. Okay, so I'm gonna skip some of the art stuff, like, because my whole thing about art is like, good art, and then I'll move on.
This up to the guy that is one of the maps that I'm most excited for.
So, I don't care where, and I hate to be like super bland like this. I don't care where the hell the map is at. I don't give a fuck. I don't care. Just, I want to look at how it's designed. So when I look at these maps, I'm going to tell you what I look at from like a design point of view, because I don't care where it's set at. It could all be orange, and it could not be anywhere, and I'd be happy.
With the Overwatch version of Rome, we wanted where we get to sit down to sort of this powerful feeling.
So
of
the one thing that I've noticed about a lot of the new maps is that they're getting rid of that Havana and Rialto problem. You can see in this one, there's some sight lines to the left and right of the statue, but you'll see a lot of flanks on the sides and stuff in the middle to actually like break up long line of sights. The more I look at these maps, the more I see this, how prominent it is. Now, of course, there's going to be some open area, usually like at the cap point or something like that, but a lot of this we're going to see, there's going to be a lot of flanking, a lot of closed in areas, stuff like that.
One of the most exciting things,
like, you can already see it right here. Look, you got left flank, you got a right flank, stuff in the middle.
Me, is the early building of these maps.
So this is the end of the game, or end of a point, because you can see, like, here's a spawn point, there's like the capture point, and while it is open in the middle, but look, you can see back here, areas to flank. Right here, area to flank. Right over here, area to flank.
Where
right.
We get to sit down together.
And this is like a payload, I believe. I think they said they're all hybrid, or if it's a push. Understand that the payload does give cover, so when something seems really open, it could still be in the cover.
People from the environment team, level designers,
again, yes, this centerpiece looks open, but you can see a lot of doors and nooks and crannies on the sides.
We'll spend some time talking about moments in the game.
This is what I see a lot of.
the call together with key people from the environment team.
Oh, that's right. It takes me back like 15 seconds. A very awkward amount. I thought it was 10 like YouTube. So right here, we see a lot of this. I don't know what the best way to put it is. I would say I would break some people's ankles as playing Junkrat because there's a lot of verticality, a bit of openness, but a bit of closedness. So there's just a lot of cover. There's a lot of weird things like interweaving tunnels.
Like the Coliseum.
I think that's going to be a lot more important, especially with we'll talk about it later. But to change the brawlers,
or we'll do a concept painting of
like Dorado Point B.
We try to draw inspiration from as many different sources as possible. For example, one of our environment
more like Volskaya, where the big health pack is, where everyone defends from on point A. How there's those stairs that go up and you can circle around and do all that stuff. That's what I'm thinking of.
Taking a trip to
ancient architecture in Rome.
So talking about Rome still, yada yada yada.
Pieces of environment art that I think we've made for the entire game, and it just absolutely took my breath away.
Okay, so here's a good example of the point. Right, you got the main path. That's where you want to capture it. So there's going to be a push. There's going to be a payload in the way. Right side, closed-in areas, columns. Another right side flank. A left side, you can see an open doorway over here. More flanks. That's a waterfall. I was wrong. There may be a flank over there.
Yes.
It's the one.
Okay, and this guy brings out the new map, New York.
Striving to make it.
I've been to New York. I've been to New York and I've peed in the subways. Is that good thing to say? Is that content? No. Well, it was funny. My brother, I was young at the time, and my brother, who's older than me, is just like, "Yeah, man, this is what everyone does. You just piss on the tracks." And I was like, "All right." So I just leaned up against the column and I pissed on the tracks. And he's like, "Don't worry, if someone comes, I'll tell you." And of course he didn't. So there's like a guy behind me just kind of watching me, and I was like, "Thanks, asshole." And he's just like, "That's what I'm at. I'm a brother. This is what I do." Yeah, that's when I was like 12 or 13. And then my brother just sent me home on a bus back to Detroit. My mom was quite upset. Quite upset that a child was going halfway across America by himself when he was 12. I was gonna fucking die like a bitch. Yeah, anyways.
Authentic.
What? I'm not gonna let the rough streets of New York. Now, I wouldn't have stayed there at night. That would have scared the shit out of me when I was that young. But yeah, I took a bus back. I laid over in Cleveland. Cleveland! You know what? There's one thing to do in Cleveland, people. In fact, all of Ohio. You know what that is? Pack up, get the fuck out. That's all you do in Ohio. So that's what I did, and I got made it back home to Detroit. Anyways.
While still putting this Overwatch spin on it.
Back to Overwatch, until you guys, got sidetracked. Jesus. Anyways, New York City, very, very... It's going to be closed-in spaces, right? Don't expect very big areas in this map.
Like the village. There's some smaller shops there. There's a fire.
So this is, I believe, one of the bigger points. And you can already see, like, there's a lot of shit in the way. Closed-in streets.
Little pizza place.
Cover. I mean, this is just an entire flank right here.
Things that people that are...
this is exactly what I'm talking about. You got a lot of columns. You got a lot of ups and downs. It'd be cool if the train's moving and it kills people. That'd be dope.
Familiar with New York City will either recognize...
Again, you can already see this. This is probably like where the payload finishes. Look, bam. Cover for you to get out of spawn. Left flank, right flank, cover everywhere. I think they realized what happened with Rialto and Havana, and now we're going to start seeing... We're going to start seeing proper cover, and to stretch this to the long end of this video, the whole change from tanks to brawlers means they need... Tanks are still going to be, or brawlers are going to be close range heroes. So all of a sudden the game really, really, really dramatically shifts to short range, or at least let's favor short range a little bit more than we're doing currently.
Or maybe see the reference that we're trying to make
again,
with some of our different
you see cover everywhere.
It feels like
again, more and more to the point, you see cover everywhere.
You haven't seen in other games before because it's...
We were talking about PvP, and one thing that I think is really interesting about PvP in Overwatch 2 is some of the philosophical changes.
I just want to say, if you've been with me and you've been listening to my rants and my posts, I've kind of been calling this for a while.
we're making to the approach.
PvP feels different and new. We're upgrading our combat feel. The roles are playing differently. When it comes to all new maps, it's a pretty big departure from where we are on live right now. So I can't wait to see where we end up with it by the time we launch this thing.
Now, first thing you should notice, Reinhardt's shield, 800. I did see Winston's shield. It's at 600 health. So they lowered both of those a bit.
We're also experimenting with the idea we call role passives, which are passive abilities that a hero can have based on what role they are. For example,
Role passives are going to be very important. A lot of people aren't happy with them. These are going to be very good. A lot of the issues I talk about with roles and how they interact with each other is going to be fixed by this. So let's just hear it.
currently in our internal builds, the tank heroes all have knockback reduction against them, and they also generate less ultimate charge for enemies.
One, all tanks get more resistant to knockback. Now, a lot of people are upset about this. And I would say why? And they'd go, well, some heroes aren't going to be as good. I'm like, well, they can do balance changes, but but it makes them feel clunky, and that's the new hot topic, because everyone says anything's clunky. I'm like, we gave them 5 less damage, and they're like, they feel clunky now. And I said this about Doomfist, and I said this about any hero in Overwatch, if the point of the hero is to take away your control and give you no ability to fight back, fuck your hero. That hero should not exist in Overwatch. So the fact that people are getting upset that tanks have a more knockback resistance, it just means tanks can now fight back more. And that shouldn't be looked down upon. If you're upset at someone being able to fight back, then, go to hell. Go to hell. But the second one, and I don't know if I want to stop here and just talk about it a lot, it seems subtle. And I guess I can start talking about it now. But, so, what they say...
Enemies that a hero can have based on what role they are. For example, currently in our internal builds, the tank heroes all have knockback reduction
so we'll go over
against
again.
them, and they also generate less ultimate charge for enemies that are shooting at them.
So tanks generate less ult charge for people shooting them. I want to have chat interacted on this one. What do you guys believe it's... Why do they do that? Right? People are just like, oh, cool. Tanks generate less ult. Why? This is why I said it's subtle. Slowing down global ultimate charge. It doesn't, right? What is the one thing that supports... Or, I gave the answer away. What role generates ult extremely fast and is always first and is actually a really big problem in Overwatch? Supports. Supports aren't getting any less ult. So what's getting less ult? Well, damage heroes mostly. Damage heroes, like, I can understand maybe you want ults to happen less, but specifically damage heroes having ults has never been a problem. Now, yeah, so other tanks will build ult a little less. But why? You can say global ult charge, but I could just go like this, which they've already done. Hey, global ult percentage increased by 10%. Bam, I did the same exact thing. Why specifically tanks? The first reason, to incentivize, because tanks are becoming brawlers, and we'll get that into a little bit. Tanks are becoming brawlers, and maybe people will brawl less if they're giving a lot of ult charge away. So maybe it's there to incentivize being aggressive, taking a couple hits. It's not a bad thing. They're gaining less ult, and your supports are gaining just as much. I think that's the first reason. But the second reason, and it was actually why I bring this up, is it's one of the things I actually wanted this balance point back before roll queue. And I was like, why don't we just say, like, and it was actually to balance tanks more, I said tanks should give more alt charge. Like, they should give 150% instead of 100%. And people are like, why is that? I'm like, well, tanks are just that much better than damage heroes. There needs to be more of a disadvantage to running 3 tanks, besides just more HP to get alt off of. They should not only just generate it more because of their HP pool, but faster as well. Everyone said I was stupid and blah, 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 blah. And then GOATs happened, and it's like, oh man, I guess tanks really needed some big disadvantage across the roll. So yeah, tanks will quote unquote feed less. But both teams have tanks. I don't see why you would want, if both damage heroes are gaining ults just as fast, I really don't see a reason why. I mean, it just slows it down, but you could just say, hey, damage people have a passive as well, which is they generate ult 10% slower. The counterpoint is that DPS will get way more ult charges when Ana is nanoing them every 30 seconds. I mean, that is such a niche case. I don't believe that to be true, right? We're talking about a lot of generalities when we're talking about design. Yeah, I know. No, that's not fine, Hunter Pangs. I don't mind if you go to the extremes, because if you find one extreme and the other extreme, we can understand how they relate. So don't say you're sorry. That's fine. And this is where we get into a little bit of the speculation. The speculation, and if you guys haven't heard it, is that Overwatch may go to 5v5. Now, I'm like, I don't care what the videos show. They're just doing stuff. Like, they're just showing stuff. It's just dev stuff to kind of like make a little pretty picture. But remember how I said, well, you need a reason to de-incentivize tanks back before roll queue because people could pick multiple tanks. Well, if I'm going to say, hey, tanks generate less alt, it's kind of under the same foundation as that. It means that maybe one team has a different amount of tanks, or brawlers in this case, than the other. That would be my biggest reason to ever put this into the game. Because then you have a reason to run some brawlers, and brawlers don't feel as bad to play if they're giving less alt charge. Because if you're going 3 tanks, or 4 tanks, or whatever, if roll queue is gone, then yeah, maybe your team would feed a little bit too much ult. But if you did this, well, now you're incentivizing people playing brawlers. Well, if Ryan has 800 shields from 1600, you probably need some compensation, right? We'll get into that. They'll do more balance parts, but let's just continue and just think about that.
Damage dealing heroes have a movement speed bonus, which
So damage heroes are faster. Now, I've watched this video like for 15 minutes, and I keep on trying to time stuff and try to find an instance where I can see how much faster they are. This isn't too much faster. Like, I know people are like, oh man, the damage heroes just zoomed right past Zarya, and
is great for
like, it took 5 seconds to gain like 2 feet past her. So I think it's about a 15 to 20% increased speed. That's about it.
flanking around the map. And
to go into this a little bit of detail, in my last post, I talked about how I didn't like how damage dealers, damage roll, and tanks kind of had interactions. Right? Basically, the tank comes up, like if it's a mobile tank or they get in your face, the damage hero has to run. You have to. There are very few damage heroes in the game that can stand toe-to-toe with an off-tank or even a tank, once they're in killing distance. With increased movement speed, you actually, like, I wanted damage heroes to have more shield for health, so that if they got into a confrontation, they could get away. Because again, Remember what I said about damage heroes. Their uniqueness is not damage, it's mobility. I fucking nailed it. Because what do? They strengthen their uniqueness with the movement speed. So now, when a tank goes to engage against a damage dealer, well, now you can just run away. And people are like, well, why can't you do it now? Well, one, some heroes, specifically Junkrat, they have to use an ability to get away, and one that can be eaten by some specific heroes, right? Now you have something that cannot be stopped that you can just get away from. You can break off and get away from their killing distance, which means I can now interact with them more. Now people are like, well, that just means damage heroes run away and tanks really can't engage with them. No, they can. They literally have to turn and run away, though. You can shoot them in the ass as they're running and deal some damage, and they have to go back and heal, but you just won't get the kill now. So, I see this as really good. This directly addresses the issues I saw how damage dealers or damage and tanks interacted. Movement speed is also on Bastion, yeah. And Fuey, of all people, is like, dude, Bastion is the dumbest hero with a speed bonus because he doesn't move. And I'm like, no, but he does move. He can position himself different places quicker, which actually supports, like, don't sit in a single spot with Bastion and just sit there for 5 minutes. Like, if you see the better Bastion players, they take a form, shoot, get up, move. They keep on doing that. They emphasize movement and mobility a lot in this video. Do you think all damage heroes should have an ability for movement? If you look at my last post, yes. Almost all. It's okay to have an archetype for a damage hero without mobility, because you don't want all heroes to be the exact same. So you have heroes without mobility. Mei, Sim, Torb, Mccree. And they have either extra strength or extra utility to like compensate for this, and that's good. That gives us hero diversity. I don't want all heroes to have mobility because they have to, but they need something. Most damage heroes need mobility because the difference with damage heroes as compared to tanks is damage heroes can deal damage from farther away, and their kit allows them to consistently, because of mobility, put out that damage. Essentially, without mobility, there would be situations where a damage dealer can't output damage, and then they're just a bad tank. But with like long-range heroes, they have abilities to get to high ground, so they can keep on poking. Junkrat has abilities, and other heroes have abilities to go to high ground to low ground. They can adapt to every environment, and they can find weird angles to keep the pressure on. That's what damage is about. Damage dealers aren't about damage. They're about mobility and keeping on pressure. That's how they're designed. So when I say, hey, what's a tip for Junkrat? Stay alive. And people are like, yeah, I know, ha ha ha. Like, no. Like, damage dealers are designed to try to stay alive and output damage over a long period of time. So stay alive. That's what the role does.
And healing heroes, support heroes have automatic healing that kicks in after they haven't taken damage for a while. Very similar.
So I thought about this one for a hot second, and I was like, well, if they're making all supports heal, are they going to nerf self-healing for all supports? Because right now, Lucio self-heals slower than he heals everyone around him, and it's really awkward. So does Brig. Ana has an ability. Zen he has to wait. So basically Zen, nothing changes. Mercy, literally nothing changes. Moira, she has to deal damage or use an ability to heal. And I was like, oh, maybe they're going to reduce self-heal so they're weaker to burst damage, which would make them weaker to damage heroes and flankers like that. And then, but if they survive the flank, then they easily get their HP back. And I'm like, no, that doesn't make much sense. I think they're just going to get this on top of their already ways to heal. And it just makes it so supports don't have to extend or expend an ability to self-heal after they survive the flank. Because it really sucks for a healer to have to heal another healer, because like you just have to do it so they don't die to chip damage from random spam. I like this. It's a quality of life thing. I don't think they're going to do anything with everyone's support. Maybe they'll nerf Brig and Lucio's healing so they don't it doesn't double essentially with the self heal, and same thing with Mercy and Zen. I think it's just going to be added to the hero class, and that's fine. Does Bap's AoE heal affect them less? It does, yes. Yeah, Baptiste, any AoE healing that's used outside of Ana heals the support hero less than it does everyone else. That's how it works right now. You can look it on the Overwatch wiki. It's quite a bit. So we'll continue. I like it. Just it's a quality of life thing. It's really annoying for an Ana to live, and she's the only support left. I didn't think about it that way. Maybe they fully get rid of. I don't know. It's too much to go off of. Too much speculation on that point. What ran through my head was what if they fully removed roll queue because all supports heal? Now they don't need another support to help them heal themselves, right? If there's ever a break in action, they all self-heal. So, hey, if you're running one healer, that's fine. They don't need that second healer. I don't know if it's going to go that far, but it does bring up the thought. But at least it makes supports a little more self-sufficient. That's great. I think that's going to be a big theme in Overwatch, Overwatch 2. I think self-sufficiency is going to go up across the board pretty significantly. So maybe damage, tank, support, they can all carry a little bit more. In fact, I almost guarantee that's what's going to happen going forward, is a little more individuality instead of super teamwork based.
Similar to Mercy's passive, but a little bit of a lower rate.
So overall, with all the row passives, I love it. I love the idea. I love the systems. I think this needed to be implemented like right now, just to make each role feel more different. Because right now, we saw from Goats, and with my blog post, damage isn't what makes heroes in Overwatch unique. It's basically everything else that makes them unique. Everyone can do damage in Overwatch.
One of the more shocking changes that we've been exploring in Overwatch 2 PvP is a change to the tank.
I don't know how many people caught this.
Role.
D.Va took 85 damage here. That means Reinhardt's Fire Strike went down to 90 damage because she has armor, so knocked off 5 damage. This is because they gave Reinhardt 2 Fire Strikes, so it's down to 90 damage instead of 100, which instantly kills people. We'll just listen to this whole thing.
Applied to all of the tanks. We want to try to make them more toe-to-toe brawlers and less characters that just stand back and...
So, we see it got damaged by like 20, maybe like 15%. I'm assuming that's 600 or 650 health on Winston's shield.
Protect other people.
So, for example, for Reinhardt, we've given him 2 charges of Fire Strikes, so he can throw Fire Strikes a lot more aggressively and more often. Also, his charge, he's able to cancel it now, and you can steer it more aggressively, so you can, not quite turn a corner, but you can definitely more accurately pin targets. And because you can cancel it, it allows you to use it much more aggressively and, really go after those key targets without feeling like you're going to sacrifice, all of your positioning, everything to get there. He's almost more terrifying now with this, to be able to unleash his full arsenal more often than kind of just being the guy with a shield.
The changes to Reinhardt that we're trying.
So, I'll just stop it here. What do I think of Brawlers? It's the way to go. I think damage heroes, and I covered this when I started looking at the game more in depth with my last post, and basically when I said, hey, damage heroes aren't unique with their damage. It's actually quite average. But their uniqueness is mobility and their long rangeness. And then you're like, well, what about tanks? What do they do? I'm like, well, they just whoop a lot of ass up close. That's what they do. So, and then I went into analyzing tanks, and I was like, well, what do you take away from them? Do you take away their shield? You can't. Everyone's doing so much goddamn damage in Overwatch, you can't take away the shield. They'll just die if they sit back. Do you take away some of their control? No. Do you take away their damage? Well, then you just run up to them and kill them. There's no point. Like, tanks are in a really bad spot in Overwatch, where if you take any one thing away, the whole tank idea crumbles. They need something to be a threat, else you just ignore them, right? Or you just hold the shield the whole time, which no one wants to do. So at the swap to brawling, it makes all tank heroes, and this is how I see it, they briefly stop damage, and that's it. They're strong close range, and they briefly stop damage, but that is it. The whole idea of just sit behind a shield. We do the old school Civil War, American Civil War. People line up and they shoot each other, and that's it. That's going to be gone. I think that's what they say. Oh, Overwatch 2 feels very different PvP. I think it's because the whole militiamen type deal where everyone lines up and takes a shot is going to be gone. It's going to be a lot more quicker movement. Hit from here, see what you can get. It's going to be a lot of basically like just poking and jabbing, more or less. And now that's when you see, oh, that means damaged heroes that are quicker. That's going to be big for them. And as someone said in chat, hey, you can dominate the health packs a lot more with more movement speed. Yes. We're going to see a lot more engagements on the flank. Maybe we'll see more damaged heroes pair off. Oh, guess what? You ran into a tank on the flank. In normal cases, you would die. No damage dealer can deal with the tank on the flank. Because it rhymes, actually. That's why. But now it's like, well, fuck off. I'm just going to run away. And you do. Sweet. Okay, you know, and then you deal with something else. And I think that's how the game is going to progress going further. I just think it's funner, so more people will play tanks or brawlers. It's less dependent on your team. Again, that to me that equates fun. So more people will play brawlers. Yeah. And then again, the 5v5 thing, I'll talk at a later time, but keep that in mind again.
And they might not shift. That's just the reality. But the changes that we're trying right now are to try to embrace more of that instinct that players have.
And remember when I talked about player impact, and that's the biggest thing to do about tanks? That is this. So, fucking called it, internet.
When they want to play a big burly character that looks aggressive.
And I think this is a really good point that he made. He's like, look, you're this big hulking character. Why don't I run in and just punch people? In every other game, tanks are bigger and stronger and scarier looking because they just run in and they beat the shit out of people. Overwatch actually does not do that. Right? And it actually is quite counterintuitive. It's a good point. I never really thought about it, but yeah, it's a good point.
It feels like it should be aggressive.
Smaller point. Remember my last post where I said, hey, why do the hell do anti-tank heroes exist? I think this gives them a reason for existing now. So, as far as PvP, that's it, boys. That's all we got. That is all we got from BlizzCon and about PvP going forward. Yeah, I think based on map design, favoring closer areas, perfect. It's going to make Overwatch so much better. If people didn't see it, there's a tweet from Slasher where he talked to Jeff, and he said, Jeff, what's we doing 2CP? And Jeff said, 2CP is going to exist in Overwatch 2. Thank you. It's funny, and I was like, they should make it into a multi-point capture point, like TF2, where you have to capture A, then B, then you can capture C. And that's what they kind of said they're going to reuse the maps in some other way. You'll see them still, but they won't be 2CP. It's fucking dope, right? Those are really good things. The hero passives, I think, is great. Better define hero roles and what they're good and bad at. Because right now, if you went to any other stream or any forum and you said, guys, damage heroes uniqueness is not damage, you would get so much hate. Everyone would say you're wrong and everyone would fight you. But that's the truth. They're showing that with the new patch or the Overwatch 2. And they're just reinforcing this idea that, hey, damage dealers, they're not unique in damage. Brawlers are going to do damage too. It's just damage rolls a little bit different.
Shortly after BlizzCon, we spun up this group.
So we're going to kind of skip over the combat upgrades a little bit, and maybe this is just mainly sound. So they're just like, look, that's old shots
and a new kind of feel.
So they're making what I would call juice. They're adding more juice to the game. Like they'll show it like
things.
One of the bigger efforts we're undertaking for
I'll let him
Overwatch
explain
2
it. It's
is
his
what we're
job.
calling our Weapon 2.0 sound pass. What this is a big audio sound, feel like they're in the environment. This meant working with Convolution Reverb. It's a new system that we've implemented into Overwatch. It's a way that we can capture the acoustics of an environment and transport it onto the sounds that we're using. So we went and captured tails.
I think when I watched this, I was like, this is kind of funny. This is actually kind of... I see how sound engineering is it's incredibly important. Don't let anyone ever tell you differently. Sound is super important. But to me, it kind of sounds like a little bit of a boring job, a little bit tedious for my liking. But then you see them do this. They're like, yeah, I had to go to the gun range and some guy shot shit and I just recorded it. I'm like, that's fucking cool.
Of guns in different environments through our weapon shoots.
That guy's like, fuck, this is my job. That's sweet. So I'm going to skip over most of the sound part, but I'll end it with this idea. I forget what game it was, but there was a game, and they actually noted this. I think it was some Call of Duty or some realistic FPS. What happened was like, there was like, you know, the Allies and the Axis, and they had the exact same gun. They were called different things, they had different models, but stat-wise, they were identical. The thing is that everyone that played the Allies version of it said this gun was so much better, and the Axis one was just dog shit. Identical. What was it? The Allies one sounded better. That is it. It had more pump to it. It was purely because it just sounded like you're shooting someone, like it's doing a lot more damage, like just pure sound and reverb and player feedback. So when people are like, oh, sound doesn't matter, no. Quite literally when Jeff's like, perception matters, this is one of the key things. Sound really, really impacts perception. So instead of buffing soldiers' damage from 19 to 20, they could just change his sound and people would be like, yeah, it's better. This is cool. So based on the environment, you get different sound. That's neat.
Where but also with how the gun moves as you shoot, you know, so you can really feel.
So this is the juice I would talk about.
And there's a lot of subtle little tweaks we have to do on the gameplay engineering side to make that feel really visceral. Everything from making sure that the camera shakes are crisp, making sure that if you get shot, you know exactly these tight indicators show up on the outside of your reticle. All these things play into making the game feel not just tight and responsive, but also modern and up to date.
Yep.
Take 76, for example. What we wanted to do in Overwatch 2 with his weapon was make it really feel incredibly powerful, and that happens with a bunch of different elements that mix together. But it really feels like the gun is almost just outside of your control. A lot of that comes down to this camera shake technology, where every time you...
Now, when camera shaking and stuff happens a little bit too much, like models are just running all the way, like it does take away some from the game, but a little bit isn't a bad deal.
Fire the weapon. You want to feel like it's running through your entire body, and the camera shake gives that extra bite to every single shot out of the chamber. It makes him feel really great.
This is all good.
You guys got a sneak peek of Sojourn from last
And here's Sojourn.
Blizzcon. She's been under development for quite a while, and she's actually quickly at this point become...
Remember when I said Chro? Well, I didn't say Chro. You guys said this, right? What weapon do you want in Overwatch? And I was like, guys, I'm a Quake player. It needs to be a fucking railgun.
a lot of people's favorites in-house.
So it looks like she's a DPS. Her right click is a railgun. I think it does 80 damage or so, maybe 75. I'm not exactly sure. I couldn't tell if it could headshot or not, but you don't really know what any of her abilities do. But one of them looks. Oh, one of them I believe is a slide, because in the passive, not in the passive, in the artwork that I briefly looked at, it showed her sliding, and it said, "Oh, calf boosters." Back booster and like some other booster, and it showed her sliding and these things going off. And then if you look at the icon down here, it's literally like a slide going on. So I think she can slide.
When we look back at Overwatch when it was originally created, there was a lot of heroes that were made.
So just overall, she seems like a cool hero. I have really nothing more to say about it. Railgun to me, love it. I love the railgun. That's what I grew up on.
From a gameplay standpoint, kind of surrounding a weapon type. For example, Pharah was based on a rocket launcher hero. Widowmaker is clearly like kind of the sniper. We thought there was a weapon that was kind of missing that would be a lot of fun to play with, and that's a railgun. It's so much fun in the playtest to have this really powerful
Yeah, yeah, I was looking at when she was able to one-shot a half-health Orisa. This is what I was looking at. She hits the Tracer. I couldn't tell if it was a headshot or not, but Tracer has a square left, so it looked like it did 125 damage. Because if she has, 150 health and each square is 25 or 20? Something like that.
Rip through enemies if you really are accurate with it, and she's all about that.
Okay, that last one, you just saw the indicator. Yeah, it did headshot.
Aim skill, so if you got that aim skill, you'll love her.
In the top right, it showed a red icon for the kill on Orisa, because it was a headshot. Her normal shots do damage, and she builds up a charge. The more charge, the more damage the rail does. Look at the center of the screen.
Powerful shot that can, rip through enemies if you really are accurate with it.
So it's not that she shoots and gains charge, is that she has charge, and then she shoots, and she uses some of that charge. It doesn't look like it builds up any faster or slower based on her attacks. I heard her ultimate.
She's kind of missing that would be a lot of fun to play with, and that's.
I think it's because they're in her ult. It's going up all the time.
It's so much fun to playtest to have this really powerful shot that can, rip through enemies if you really are accurate with it. And she's all about that aim skill.
Then yeah. So I guess
if
her ult nonstop charges up. Gotcha.
We're still exploring new game modes, and we're also reevaluating older game modes.
I like how you just fucking say it, Jeff. Just don't lead me around. Guys, we're analyzing old game modes. And it's like, yeah, 2CP, just say it. Just say it's 2CP.
That people are more critical of. We're of the mindset maybe 2CP doesn't exist in Overwatch 2.
There he goes.
There's a new cool game mode that replaces it.
Because they're not looking at every game mode, probably. They're like, guys, 2CP, get the fuck out. Replace it with something.
We really want Overwatch 2 to feel like the next evolution, a true sequel to the first game, not an add-on. It's not a small part. It's not an extension of the original game. This is an evolution and a replacement to the original game. And I think it's exciting.
Okay, PvP. Or, sorry, PvE. I'm gonna gloss over a lot of this. It's not that I don't care. It's that I guess I already had an expectation of what the game is, and they're just pretty much spot on of what I expected it to be. What is the PvE mode? Don't think of it as some event stuff. Like how we've always had the events in the spring and the fall and stuff like that. People are like, oh, you just shoot robots and that's it. You just play normal maps and you shoot robots. It's not really any fucking big deal. No, this is going to be a full-on RPG. I'm expecting single-player, the campaign, to be quite intensive. I expect it to be pretty ridiculous. I expect a storyline, and I expect there to be a theme, and I expect there to be a beginning and an ending, and then all this character interaction, and it's... For the people that say that Overwatch 2 and the PvE is a money grab, you would be stupid to not expand upon the intellectual property that is Overwatch as Blizzard. What gets people into games is lore. Very few games that have only been competitively based have ever gone anywhere. Most games start as a casual game that people get into, they think it's fun, they learn the lore, and do that stuff. Overwatch 2 kind of did that, and it really left people wanting. So Overwatch 2 is finally fitting this in, and it's like, hey guys, here's that lore you wanted. Because like you look at Diablo, it's so much heavy lore. Same thing with StarCraft. I mean, really, that's Blizzard's bread and butter, is this just really well polished lore, and sometimes their plot sucks, but it looks nice. But yeah, I think it's going to be a great mode. The fact that they're doing the big passive skill trees is really cool. Everything about it. The fact that they're making things unique, and every time you play a map, it's a little bit different. These are all cools. It adds to replayability. And of course, there's going to be new heroes, new missions coming out all the time. So this is great. We'll watch it a little bit.
The goal around hero missions is for these to be this co-op PvE experience.
So what I can relate this to is if anyone played StarCraft 2, there was this PvE mode. And you play just against the computer, and it's kind of like you just take a scenario and you play it. I think this exists this hero mission stuff exists outside of the campaign. At least that's how I interpret it.
I personally only play competitive mode. Like, I'm all about that competition. And I have friends that they don't want to do that at all. So I'm really looking...
At that point, I would say 90% of the player base doesn't want to play this competitively. Only 10% do. Most of the people want to just play it and just play it casually. So,
forward to a game that I can play hours and hours with my friends who aren't in competitive, and it's also something that I'm interested in.
Hero missions are the content that people are playing as they are leveling up their heroes, and so for a system like this to really sing, you need a lot of mission. We don't want players to feel like they're just in this grind to get to the top.
And there's a lot of really, really good back-end technology that we're exploring. So
People
So,
will be adding...
we're just going to go through
space.
this, and this is just the whole, like, the new backend technology is like, hey, I have a mission, but now I have 10 balancing points. Weather, what heroes you play, the objective, the type of enemies you're against. All of these things are sliders that you can bop, 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 and you can have, like, a ton of different, essentially different types of games, right? If you had a scale of 1 to 100 and you could scale it up on each one of these axes at any point in that, like, you would have, 100 to the, 10th power if you had 10 balancing or different mechanic axes.
Onto some of these maps.
Hero mission playtest, we came up to an area in King's Row that usually has a gate on it.
This is also an interesting way of doing it, is that maps will change a little bit. And by a little bit, I mean a lot. Like, you're going to go to a different part that may not even exist now. So if you play King's Row 10 times, you may experience 10 different versions of the map itself, on top of all these little balancing sliders.
Suddenly that gate opened, and I saw a new area of King's Row that I had never seen before. It was like...
Very early on our own free time, made a prototype of a sandstorm on the Temple of Anubis map.
And at the time, we didn't know what we wanted to do with that.
These
but
weather
it was
effects are
awesome.
pretty sweet. I'm not going to
We
lie.
looked
Way through time, nighttime, sun, nighttime in Mccree.
So again, these are all different ways to, like, view the same game. You're going to have different times, different weathers, different enemies, yada, yada, yada.
Or they allow them to...
Yeah, let's...
In return, where you're trying to go and grab these different canisters to kind of safeguard them so they don't go off and affect the population in a negative way. It creates that are really difficult.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Clean up their heroes.
And we showed the very early version of our talent system, which I think was really cool. We had that one talent where, like, became the rolling snowball, which was a big hit. We've really blown that system out.
I'm real excited about talents. You can play the same hero in so many different ways. Now with the...
Man, talents. What a crazy idea to play one hero in different ways. Like, man, if you're a Junkrat and you're having problems with long range heroes, you could play Junkrat one way, but then you could have a kit where you could play, like, short range. Like, that would really allow heroes to adapt to different situations. Man, you could really use that in PvP. I get why they don't. I understand Overwatch is supposed to be simple, but to be like, every hero needs to be viable. Well, talents would do that. I know they're not going to do it, and I know why they're not going to do it, but it is kind of funny that all their issues they have could be solved by talents, but there is more interest at Blizzard to keep things simple and allow people to get into the game faster than there is to make PvP more balanced. And that's fine. That's just the way they have rated their responsibilities and what they see and what priorities each one is. There's nothing wrong with that, but it is funny that you're like, the system we're developing could be used over here to fix our issues. No.
skill tree, you can have fun every night doing different things and kind of experimenting.
Yeah, the talent system.
So it's very, and people are like, if this looks just like Borderlands. And if I would just get in your face about it, I'd say, actually, this looks like Diablo 2. Right? Diablo 2 had each hero or class, whatever you want to call it, had 3 different skill trees. And they were based around, like, Necro had summoning, curses, and then bone skills. Assassin had traps, shadow disciplines, and martial arts. Yeah, that's literally it's identical from Diablo 2, if you will. The only thing I would say that would relate it, I don't know if this is actually passives, which would make it more Borderland-esque, but if there are some active abilities in there, then it would make it more like Diablo 2. If you will.
It is like really deep.
That's what they do in
rich,
WoW
and
too? Okay.
every
Yeah, it's a
single
Blizzard thing.
hero has had some pretty hilarious through spaces.
Dual wield grenade launchers and
So there's Junkrat dual wielding grenade launchers. Everyone's like, "Wabba-dabba-dabba-dabba-doo," and I'm just like, it's PvE, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's gonna be cool. Don't get me wrong. But I mean, it's PvE. It's gonna be cool, but that's not just what I'm super interested. If you're excited about it, I'm happy for you.
we've had Mercy be able to area effect res their whole team at once. It's
I love this. They're like, we're gonna have overpowered abilities like Mercy rezzing the entire team. You mean season 1 Mercy? Are you just bringing back that old shit? Like, what the fuck? Are you gonna win a game and then there's gonna be a coin flip and you're just gonna attack or defend once and that's how you win the mission? Like, come on, get something new up. Think Mccree would get 2 revolvers?
super long range through walls.
Wouldn't that be so lame if every hero just gets 2 of their gun as the max level? It would be so bad.
It's been a ton of fun, kind of like mad scientists making all this stuff.
You're all used to using these kind of kinetic weapons like Soldier 76's rifle or fire attack like what Reinhardt's Flame Strike does. As soon as you start to mutate these.
So this is a cool idea. What they're adding is it's not that complex, but it is cool. They're just adding an elemental damage. So this actually kind of is, well, it's like every game ever. Any weapon can have fire damage, lightning damage, ice damage, and it's going to do different stuff.
Things with talents. All of a sudden, maybe you're doing freeze damage or electrical damage, but it gives the animators a bunch of crazy opportunities.
There's the electric trap
the
people are
animations
talking
are gonna
about.
change to show them freezing and shattering.
Yeah, okay, cool.
One of them.
So this whole point I'm just gonna skip. Null Sector, they're just gonna go into like how they've spent a lot of time making enemies unique and how they feel different and all this other stuff. Good for you. Anyways, continuing. It's all really important. I'm not.
Don't even attack the player.
March, and you know
The slicers, which you works
Through.
elegant looking long to happen at
Like
the
this.
player, and then it
I'll just show
activates
this because it does seem
this
cool.
tractor beam, and it's bringing you in and bringing you in, and then you get this awesome like anticipation of the hair opening up, so you know what's about to happen.
Like that's cool. All right, I'll give you that. I should have done this on YouTube. They actually have breakdown with the time marks. I don't need to. I like fast forwarding through it so I can be like, oh yeah, this was cool. Like this exact case.
feel like they have. If you fight elite grunts, his weapon fires in a burst fire.
So here's another axis of balance. What level you're playing on? Like they're saying, hey, enemies come in different levels. So now you may be fighting level 3 guys instead of level 2 or level 4, and they do different stuff and they feel different. They're not just the same guy with plus 25% stats.
Fire pattern is very deadly if you're close.
States. We intend for players. We just
This is cool. Yeah.
Visceral. Really making sure that technology. They're gonna knock into their butt.
New hero looks.
One of the things that we
All right, I'll say it. All anyone cares about is ass and titties, and apparently Mccree. My lovely girlfriend, the most beautiful woman in the world, notified me that the most highest rated tweet under this thing from Overwatch was, what was it? Please make a skin with McCree's dick and balls hanging out with jiggle physics. Apparently, Blizzard didn't notice this retweet or this comment that was upvoted to be right under it for a bit, and I was like, I can see people wanting that. I mean, I get that. It's not my thing, but I'm just like, yeah, show me those ass and titties. Like that's all people care about.
So we're gonna reveal McCree's new look for Overwatch 2 as well as Pharah.
I don't care about
using,
McCree.
Very techie fabrics, as well as having very intricate but functional straps designed in a way that it's too sophisticated or too techie. It might not feel right for the character. But as a concept artist, you always want to change things around and try different shapes and silhouettes. So we did identify as Red Serape as the main thing for McCree. We also tried a couple different things with McCree's cowboy hat. We didn't really want to mess with that too much because that's
functional
a very
straps.
iconic part of him. So that's another piece that we.
Will Junker get any techie straps? I hope he gets some. I hope he's like a really fusion of just like high tech and low tech.
A little bit more techie than others. Some Pharah than
I
some
don't,
of our other
I don't care about
heroes
McCree.
is Pharah's completely covered in armor. We didn't want to change her silhouette too much. It was more about experimenting on different colors, so it felt really appropriate.
You can tell this isn't Japanese design because Japanese design would have made it very spiky like this, but with huge titties and probably a very shapely ass. Even though it's a robot, they'd be like, well, the titties function is really important for robots. And I'm like, really, Japan? Really?
For her to be the one
And then they'd show me, I'd be like, yeah, that clearly that needs to be there, Japan. Good job.
to harken back, a bit more of a transparent. I could see a lot of potential.
Less edgy Reaper, but not as goth. Or no, sorry. More goth, less edgy. They took the sliders and they're like, let's make them a little more goth-like, but let's make them not like a 7th or 8th grader. We're up to 11th grader that's smoking cigarettes outside of school, but not too bad.
Potential and how we can integrate his cloak and his cowl and his armor and layers to his jacket.
Yeah, I gotcha. This is what we're here for, boys. This is what we're here for. It's like the goth kids in South Park, exactly.
Treasure hunter. One of them made her feel like a classic Bond villain, so we kind of steered.
I would have loved Widow as a classic Bond villain. She is definitely the woman Bond would try to seduce, but she would turn on him, and he would have to kill her at the end. Widowmaker, that's perfect. That's exactly her lore. She's a secret agent. Why didn't they go with that one? Oh, they went with the high-tech one.
Back towards one of the more cyberpunk-looking ones, almost like a futuristic femme fatale, which is basically what Widowmaker is, but she even feels more upgraded. So I'm super glad that we went down this route. We played with different hairstyles too. Widowmaker has the really long ponytail that's really key part of her look. And we really liked the hairstyle on one of the designs that was more braid, and it was really interesting look that also preserves Widowmaker's original silhouette with that long ponytail.
We've been working a lot with
I'm cool with the braids.
Domino engine and making our cloth look better. Now that we have to our and that
things that we've
So I don't care about how the cloth looks. I understand it's important. I don't care.
Some of the heroes got back together, but we're also seeing that there seems to be a second huge Omnic uprising. We're gonna learn who heroes and out
For all the available heroes, get dialogue for a given mission.
Now this is cool. Like heroes, and I'm a sucker for this stuff. And if you're not, then cool. I mean, I don't really care about the other stuff, so I understand. You're allowed your opinion. Sojourn has thighs for days. That bitch is so thick.
You didn't even notice.
I didn't notice.
I was like, do you see her thighs? You're like, I didn't know them. Like, she got them.
At first, I didn't see her thighs,
thighs.
and then I saw a picture of them, and I'm like, oh my god. Thighs. Just robot thighs enhanced to be thicker. And I'm like, why? Like, I'm sure the scientists in the future, they're just like, it was a bunch of male scientists, and there's like 60 of them in one room, just fucking working day. They're like, we can make her thighs thicker. And all the female scientists are like, what are you fucking idiots doing? Like, and they're like, shut up, thighs. And they never stopped to think if they should. They just did it because they could. They were too preoccupied with that. But they did a really good job. Let's see if I can find it. Sojourn Overwatch. Sojourn is so thick. Good job, algorithm, Google. You knew what I was talking about. Like Loba? No, bigger than Loba's. She's like Widowmaker, but like Zarya. Like she is just a very long-legged, thick woman. But you can notice like she got the old Genji treatment, because like her calves, these are all fake. These are all robots. These are all robots, like robotic legs. Like I think up to her thighs, they seem robotic. Her arms are robotic. Her face has, a lot of cybernetic stuff in it. Like, it looks like I don't know if they're going to add this to her story, but like, it looked like someone threw a goddamn grenade and she jumped on it. And they rebuilt her. Maybe that's why she's hugging Winston so much, because like, she jumped on a grenade to save Winston's life, and Winston's like, hell yeah, lady. You're my hero, right? That actually could be it. But no, like, very cybernetic. I mean, you can see like this wrist is even attached by bones. Yeah, no, I mean, it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool design.
We have NPCs.
Damn near everyone in the cast has lost a limb. I guess if you're fighting and you don't... I'm just trying to think. I'm almost thinking of RimWorld, where like you start fighting a lot in that game, and then as soon as you can make cybernetic implants, you're like, I don't care. Everyone fight. I'll just replace you with fucking robot parts. What? Colorblind! Oh, you just caught the end of that. Colorblind? Thank you so much for the host. I barely caught that, but thank you. I hope you had a lovely stream. Hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for the people just getting here. I'm not playing Overwatch right now. I'm going over BlizzCon, and the reason why I didn't do it during BlizzCon is because everyone acts so goddamn dumb when BlizzCon first comes out. They're just like, BlizzCon! And they're like, look at this, it's a square! And everyone's like, oh my god, it's an Overwatch square! And I'm just like, no, let me just take a couple days, sit back, not overreact and be like an idiot on stream, and just, let's have a reasonable talk. Let's sit down like some fucking adults, alright? And just talk. We don't gotta be all, you know, teenage bopper just being all bopping all the place. Do they even call him that anymore? I'm too old. I don't know.
We have multiple hero
But thank you so much,
choices.
Bash.
We have all
Or
sorts
Color.
of events that are
Mr.
happening
Color.
that
Mr.
are
Color. Sorry.
driving players to...
What are the two? I don't know. What is the pronoun neutral of like ma'am and sir? No, but like the higher class one. Like if I was at a high class establishment and I was like, oh, sir or ma'am, here's your table. I literally don't know this. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if everyone's like, Chro is so cringe right now. I literally don't know. I haven't left my house in like a year. Comrade? Fuck yeah, there we go. You know what? That's right. Your Majesty? That's true, that is neutral. Maybe their name? Yeah, but I guess they can do that. They can ask you your name. Actually, I don't know the answer to that question. That's why I asked it. Dude? Yeah, everyone... Thank you, Dragon Hybrid. There's a problem, Lieutenant. A good one. Dragon, a lot of people haven't seen Good Burger, so they don't understand, like, the classic song, He's a Dude, She's a Dude, We're All Dudes. That song. But Comrade, I like that. I like Comrade. That means, like, you see them on the same level as you, which I like. You just watched a Good Burger yesterday? Holy shit, Toast. If you actually did, props to you. That is such a weird show to reference.
With each other, or
back to before Color hosted me. I'm a sucker for hero interactions. Like when Junkrat is in the same spawn as Hanzo and they have their little like one-liners. I was like, oh, I like that. And actually, when heroes I don't play start interacting with each other, like Moira will talk to Genji, and I'm just like, I've never seen this situation, and they'll say something unique, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Or like when Moira makes Mei cry, I'm like, yeah, like that's an Irish woman, you know, bringing it to Mei, where she's just like, oh, Mei, how do you look so young? I want to know your research. And she's like, my friends all died because of it. And she's like, give me the fucking research, Mei. Just like, fuck. How brute. Ugh.
parts of the environment or other characters.
The different challenge, really strip it down to those bare bones.
So this is just more about how they're talking with each other. I like it.
Best as we can make it.
From our camera work
Was to figure out how to in
game. It has to mesh and feel the exact same way and blend together.
Team with the
gameplay. We want to make
developing themes for all of them in-game cinematic
Mesh and feel the exact same.
Okay, I'm going backwards. So I think this is what I'm going to call the please give us more time finale. If this is where I think we're at.
Gameplay.
So if the intro cinematic ends with this huge battle, this huge war, when you get into the game, it has to mesh and feel the exact same
Right,
way.
they're like, oh, look, guys, we got to blend all this stuff together. That takes time.
We really are also trying to get the music to be equally as consistent from in-game cinematics straight
Music
to the mission.
has to match
Adam Burgess,
everything.
our lead
That takes
composer, has
time.
been working with the
should never override the gameplay. We want to make sure that the player's experience going from the cinematic to the gameplay is seamless and it feels like a completely immersive
Seamless.
experience.
Takes
The
time.
engineers, we have to find a way to actually make that come to fruition. The choreo tool
And all these ideas that take time actually have to be done, which takes time.
is a tool that allows people to times, because if it blows,
Allowing us to push our storytelling farther than we could have previously.
what's also really powerful about choreo is that, you know, if somebody has an idea, they can mock things up really quickly.
We got to show the Widowmaker making this awesome introduction. Casey was able to quickly put a really rough prototype in choreo, and Philip would come in and on the fly.
Still lived in, and I think that informs.
Also, sorry.
And
take weeks. It was done in like a matter of days.
These maps are pretty cool.
Each story mission has its own custom map built for it, and these maps are.
So again, remember, I think people aren't noticing this difference with Overwatch 2. What they're talking about right here, notice how they refer to it as something different. They said
Absolutely.
In like a matter of days.
Each story mission.
Each story mission. Remember, they called it hero missions before, meaning there's two types of missions. There's the ones that you can grind out with a bunch of different access points, and then there's the story missions. I've just heard a lot of negativity so far with Overwatch 2, and they're just like, oh, it's just these stupid robot missions. And it's just like, no. Like, there's going to be a campaign. There's going to be this big story. There's going to be this big lead up. It's going to give you all the lore. Everything, everyone's characters are going to be in there. It's going to be great. You're going to love it. But then there's going to be like, oh yeah, then we have like these dailies that you can play just for fun with your friends. You can pick any hero you want, be a little bit more crazy. And it's going to be, you know, that's the hero mission aspect of it.
Has its own custom map built for it, and these maps are.
The Infamous Warrior got, just to call him out, because he said something right. Which most of the time people don't say in my chat. Rightness is not a big topic here, but story missions will probably have locked characters, and hero missions will be the replayable, grindy ones. Correct. Yes. Straight up, yes.
Gigantic.
India is one of our biggest city workshops.
Yeah. Torbs, don't want to hear about
missions
Torbs.
in the campaign. This character or that character. So we're designing a lot of systems around how their relationships develop over the course of the story missions in the campaign.
As my wonderful and beautiful girlfriend mentioned, everyone's very beardy in this game. Just
this character.
Winston, he's got a bigger beard.
Or that character.
I'm sure Genji has a little bit of stubble underneath his face. Reinhardt, motherfucker looks like Santa Claus now. Mccree, he's a bit shaggier. Someone in chat just a little bit earlier said, I want to see Hog with a beard. I bet it's done. I bet he has a beard.
So we're designing a lot of systems around how their relationships.
This is where I'm like, Sojourn probably jumped on a grenade and Winston's like, oh man, I never thought I'd see you again. Holy crap, you're like 75% robot. They spent a lot of time on your thighs.
Develop over the course of the story.
She's like, yes,
campaign.
my thighs are great. And they're like, haha, thighs. Perfect. I should fucking dub Overwatch.
All on screen, all at the same time. And it's fantastic to actually see them all interacting and working together in ways that we've never actually seen. We've always thought about it and hoped for it, but now it's actually happening.
It actually requires us to have a whole new branching dialogue system. If you happen to have Genji and Mercy in the second mission of the game, you might.
But what of your ass I crafted? I had to throw it away, Doctor.
Get different dialogue.
No!
That's about their relationship.
The hand-sculpted ass that Mercy made.
Bring the characters to life in ways that everybody has fallen in love with, from inside Blizzard to the fans. Just to hear this collection of actors all together.
I just kind of want to call something out about the voice actors. So a lot of the people that don't like Brig and still don't like Brig, like Samito and some other idiots, remember the hate they really put out against the hero that caused the voice actress to get death threats? Now, I'm sure those guys will say they didn't cause it, but when you're stoking the fires of people like hating a certain person, saying they're not that they're unbalanced or they're easy to play, but actually saying, hate this character, yell all the time about it, tell Blizzard how you feel about it. Are there people who still hate the Brig voice actor? No, not anymore. Like, that's a years back. But understand that whenever you bring negativity to the game, understand that you're bringing negativity to the community. And just think about what the fuck you're saying sometimes. And like, that's coming from someone who doesn't think about what they're saying sometimes. I say some stupid shit, guys. But at least I'm not, like, super emotional and hatred and that type of base. Like, it's not bad to be emotional. Like, it's a lot of people love the game and they get very emotional about it. And that's great. But don't let it stem into corrupting or, making a very toxic type environment.
They're all interacting. It's been a real treat.
Am I going to read and review the IGN article Overwatch 2 during the stream? Yes. This actually has taken a lot longer than I thought it would.
I wish people could see.
Okay, sorry. So what I said before, I think this is where they're actually going to do it. This is where Overwatch and Blizzard, they go through this thing, and this is the please give us more time speech.
How many people are involved when it comes to something like telling the story of Overwatch? It doesn't just come from a singular person. It comes from a group, and it's a really talented, fun group that all works together.
We've been developing what we hope is one of the best stories ever. There's some key story moments.
The best story ever. Takes time, boys.
I'm really excited about, and I really can't wait to see how people react to it.
All right, I didn't notice that before, but that's real bullshit that Sojourn just hit a mech with a blunt gun, and the mech snapped in two. That wouldn't happen. Dead by thighs.
We've been talking about the
Here
game, about this universe. I know you all love it so much.
Right now, we can sit down and have a night of Overwatch 2 and have it be a really fun experience. And I think
so they can play it right now. This is so look between the lines. They're like, look, we could release it right now. It would be fun, but it's not perfect.
We need some more time till we can say it's perfectly polished in the way that we want it.
I don't even remember this
We've
part.
made such incredible strides since we first announced this and showed it to the community at Blizzcon in 2019.
The thing that I'm most excited about is that moment when we hand the game over to the player.
And the player hands us money. That is my most exciting moment.
We want to create something that really moves people, really touches people.
That's why we do it. We create the game because we want it to become part of your life and for you to experience it.
For Overwatch 2, we're upping the bar.
Which takes time. Bars don't up themselves very quickly.
It's kind of 5 games in one.
We're making 5 games. That's 5 times as long as any one game.
It's a huge undertaking.
The new tech and the new aesthetics for the new looks.
We had to build tools to make us more. All right, if I'm just gonna say, if Blizzard is doing what my company is doing, they set everyone down and they go, "Hey guys, do exactly what you're doing. Actually, do a little bit more than that, but do it with less people." So people have to write automation like this. I guarantee this actually hit them pretty hard. This could actually be a reason why it's actually happening and taking so long, but that's like a legit thing. These guys had to develop these tools just so they could develop it with less people.
Bring you closer to the characters that you love, and we're just getting started.
They're just getting started? They should have been building this game for the last 2 years. Why the fuck are they just getting started?
The fidelity of the gameplay experience is much richer.
We are making cinematics that push the boundary of what we can do to tell stories.
We want this dynamic world. We want things to feel alive.
I'm really looking forward to being able to expand the world of Overwatch for our players.
We're really trying to tell this epic story.
In order to make a game great, it takes time, energy, collaboration.
We have just an incredibly professional team of designers and artists and engineers.
We just love bringing
a little bit of Chro lore, if you will. I've been on some scary calls with my job. And at one point in time, I remember someone pretty high up, they said, "Don't worry. We have our best men on the job." And I was sitting there and I'm like, I'm the one doing the work. Is this what people mean when they say they have the best men? 'Cause I am not the best man and I'm the one doing the work. It has skewed my entire perception when anyone says, we got the right people on the job. We have the best men in the nation for this. I know they're fucking lying. Because people said that about me. And look at me. Look. Alright? We're a little personal here, but look. Look at how bald I am. I can't be the best man. Look at this. Look at this. I'm like the crazy guy in every movie that people don't listen to before things go to shit. Alright? I'm not the best. Alright? So I understand they got a good team, but don't blow smoke up my ass when I'm not asking for it. Alright? So I know you're lying.
In this world, do you guys? So many cool characters. It's just a blast working on it.
Our goal is for Overwatch 2 to be the worthy successor to the first game.
Hold on. There it was. There were her thighs. They're right there too.
So many cool
but
characters.
She's walking off the
It's
ship.
just a blast working on it.
Our goal is for Overwatch 2 to be the worthy.
Holy shit. Holy shit. I don't know how I missed those thighs. She's thicker than Winston. Like, hold on. Holy shit. Here. We're just going to put this little bar. Here we go. Alright, her thighs are from here to right above the square. Alright? Alright, her thighs are the size of Tracer's torso. That is not a lie. They very easily eclipse her head size. One thigh is about 3/4 of a Tracer. I think it's actually bigger than Mccree's torso. Thick boy Winston though, he's still rocking it. I mean, Jesus.
The successor to the first game, to be the next evolution and to be a true sequel.
We have big plans, so thank you for sticking with us.
We're gonna cross the finish line and I know it's gonna be awesome.
I hope people just end up loving playing it over and over.
That's what we want to try and capture.
I want to speak to the man that says I hope that they love playing it over and over, because I want him to shake my hand and they're like, "Who are you, sir?" And I'm like, "Remember when you said you wanted people to play the same thing over and over? I've played Junkrat for 5 years." And he'd be like, "I made this game for you."
Capture. I'm jumping in. I'm playing. Let's go be heroes.
You know, this is where everyone that was streaming was like, and I'm just like, all right, cool. This is kind of what I expected. It would have been nice if we got a hero or some other content, but you didn't. All right, cool, whatever. And to be perfectly honest with everyone, do you expect me to do, like, if they added 10 new heroes in, do you think you would come here? Do you think you'd expect something different? You'd be like, Chro, what do you think about the balance in the heroes? I'd tell you. But you'd come here for the Junkrat gameplay, and there would still be Junkrat gameplay. I'm like, sweet, guys. 10 more heroes that I'm not going to play. Dope. Sweet. Okay, then it goes into voice actor stuff. I don't care about voice actor stuff. So, let me pull up my notes, just to make sure I hit all the things that I wanted to talk about. because I actually didn't talk about a lot. Things I wanted to, and did that Mercy Beam heal slower? I don't know. I try not to take too much from the videos because they can change completely. But what I'm talking more about is their philosophies. So, my notes. I'll just read them to you, just so I make sure I cleared them all. First of all, Overwatch has always been casual focused. Oh yeah, a lot of people are like, this is bullshit. Blizzard is making Overwatch a PvE game because they failed at PvP. They made it a competitive game, and now it's a casual game. I guess they're giving up because that's where the money's at. And that's total bullshit. Overwatch has always been a casual game. Read my first blog post from 2017 where I say Overwatch is all about making the FPS genre simpler and easier to get into. It's there to make more players to get into the FPS game, which is historically a very tough genre to get into. It's about just it really is pandering to the casuals, and I don't mean that in a bad way. If you believe in counters, then you believe in one hero being better than another hero through skillless means. All you did was select a hero. That's how you get your advantage. You did nothing to earn that besides select a different hero. That means it's skillless. If you like the concept of counters, then you agreed that the Overwatch was about being casual. So don't give me this, they gave up competitive play. Yes, it is a competitive, there's a competitive mode in a casual game. And the way I explain this is, guys, is there a competitive scene to Mario Party? And if anyone's ever played Mario Party, they would say, yes, people get real fucking heated about that game. But anyone that's played Mario Party will tell you it is the most skillless bullshit out there. And anything can happen at any time. And at the end of the game, guess what? They're just going to give scars to whoever the fuck they want, and that's who's going to win. So that's how I see Overwatch. It's a casual game with a competitive side that was forced into it. Don't think of it as something else. If you do think of it as something else, you've been tricked. Gotcha. That was a little. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. That was a little extreme on my side. I don't know why I have this note in here. I said the role of ladder. It's not a replacement for tourneys or scrims. I guess I've just been hearing people complain about that they're not supporting the path to pro. I don't know why I put that in here. I wrote a blog post on it, but basically I see it as fighting. Quick play is just drills, right? That's you going to the dojo or wherever you're training at and you just do drills with someone. Competitive mode is sparring, meaning there are rules. There are things you have to do or you don't have to do, but it's about getting a little bit more comfortable with the actual game. And then a real fight is basically, what scrim and tournament level play is. And that you can't exhibit that in a training environment. Like, you can't have a real fight where people are trying to hurt each other seriously, even though sparring can get a little bit heated in a competitive, in a training type environment. So don't expect the ladder to emulate tournament or competitive play. That's not the purpose of it. The purpose is there to give a little bit higher stakes than normal, to give some real feedback and some basically some real pressure, but that's about it. Oh, okay, so this is also another complaint. Why content isn't being released? And a lot of people are like, well, they're not releasing content for Overwatch 1 because they're working on Overwatch 2. But I would like to bring up the Warcraft 3 example, and I'll provide my own counterexample to this example. 1. In Warcraft 3, they redid the entire armor system. Completely redone it. Now, they couldn't put out small patches to do this because it all had to hit at once. And they're like, why don't they do a big patch? Well, because it would change the game immensely. It would not be the same game that people bought. The expectations would be like, oh, can we go back to the old? Can we do that? Let's take this stuff from the old and put it in the new. That can't happen. So what they did is they waited for an expansion and then just, bam, hit everyone with the new system. Every hero, every item and every unit is now different. This is what Overwatch is doing. And understand that if someone releases content at a regular interval, they lack the big change that an expansion can do. It's just, you have to understand that neither answer is right. Gaming as a service where you constantly release content over time is not the same as like an expansion. It's not worse, it's not better. They have different strengths and different weaknesses. Blizzard has decided to do an expansion model to leverage a type of thing that gaming as a service cannot do, which is they're going to change Overwatch PvP, I think, completely. They said at the start that the game PvP in Overwatch 2 feels completely different. That's what I expect. So don't get upset that they're not releasing content because they chose a different type of model to release like the expansion or the next gen of this game. So you have to, use that strength for the strength, and you have to understand that, they're going to use this for what they need to. So don't get pissed off that they chose a method that you didn't approve of. That's just how it works. Well, I predicted it. I did. Actually, I literally predicted that. If you want to look at that blog post, I said, what do I expect from Overwatch 2? I called it there. The passive system. And this is where I want to talk a little bit about. This is where like the clickbaity stuff is, and I may just cut the video up where I just kind of bring this little summary to it. I tweeted about this, and I guess this works. I tweeted about this, and this camera works better just because we don't really need to see the video anymore. We take off this filter. So, I lost my train of thought. I literally lost all of it. Derailed. So let me just look at my notes. Warcraft 3. No, the counterexample to that. Yeah, sorry, I'll go off on that. I didn't give myself the counterexample that I said I would. A counterexample slightly is because Dota 2 is based off of Warcraft 3. Actually, Dota 2 released a patch that they redid, or they didn't redo the armor system at all, but they simplified it and they changed it all a little bit. And they did that to make it not as confusing because Warcraft 3 is like a 5x6 grid of how damage is done to each armor type. They made it simplified and they did it in a patch. So people are like, hey, look, they did it in a patch, so clearly you can do it. It was slightly different. It actually didn't change any mechanics. It didn't change the game at all. It just made it simpler and easier to understand. Talking about passives. Yes, that's where I was at. So, and I apologize if this is heavy speculation, but there's two things I want to line up. The speculative part is that Overwatch 2 is going to be 5v5. Now, the big talk about that is someone's like, oh, but there's multiple tanks they've seen. They've seen 2 tanks on a team in the video. So no, it can't be that. Well, I think Overwatch 2 could go 5v5. I actually think it's really possible. And it's not because of the video evidence. It's because I just think about the balance of the game. Average DPS in Overwatch is 100. If you have 6 heroes focusing one hero, they die in 1 second. Doesn't matter their or it doesn't matter the hero because everyone has 600 or less HP. So if you don't have a shield, you die in a second. The only real way to do that is to massively make changes like headshot damage, or make everyone do a lot less damage, or reduce the amount of heroes in the game. But the big issue with that is people are like, well, how would you balance tanks? What would be the one role, right? You have to have 2-2-1. And this is where we see the new system where tanks are now brawlers, right? So, what makes a brawler different than a damage hero? Do you need a brawler in every composition? Do you need a damage hero in every composition? Right? If the whole idea of, hey, I hold a shield because a shield is needed in the game, that's gone. My thought is that the tank and the damage role will be merged into one. it will be a hybrid between 2-2-2 and all pick, which is there's now 2 roles. You can queue for support, or you can queue for damage brawler. This would lead to the whole argument that I had at first, where the only reason you'd want tank heroes, besides just to incentivize brawlers being aggressive and taking more damage to give less ult charge, is that you would have a different amount of tank heroes on each team. Or it would be an option to have different amount of tank heroes on each team, or brawlers in this case. Sorry, I keep saying tank. Which means if someone ran 3 brawlers, they would just give too much ult charge as compared to someone that ran 3 damage heroes. Right? So, what would this fix? 1. Queue times. If the amount of players went from 12 to 10, queue times would be drastically lowered. On top of that, if you combine the tank or the brawler and the damage category, and like my chat said, they could call it flex, you now reduce the queues to 2 instead of 3. Again, dramatically lowering the amount of time in queue. This would actually fix all of Overwatch's queue problems. By losing a player, you would also fix the absurd amount of damage in Overwatch. But you have to lower the absurd amount of damage because tanks are now brawlers. They don't have the ability to shield like 1600 HP. Or like Reinhardt's shield is now, or in the expansion, I should say in Overwatch 2, sorry. His shield is now 800 health. How can that survive against, like in the environment we have now, like, oh look, Ryan can cancel his charge and he can do 2 fire strikes. Great, I still have 600 damage coming at Ryan, whose shield's going to melt in a second and a half. So the only way to make it feel truly different would be to be like, oh, shields are pretty much not going to be used. They can be used for temporary cover. But since we reduce the amount of heroes, we're reducing the overall amount of damage. And in fact, we're going to reduce at least 1 tank or 1 damage, because you only can pick 3 of those or 2 supports. So you actually cut out a good chunk of damage. And I'm like, oh man, like, you fix queue times, you fix the damage issue. They're fixing how tanks and damage heroes or brawlers and damage heroes interact because of the movement speed change. Map design is favoring shorter distances and smaller areas and less, more cover, less open areas. And a lot of this, I'm like, okay, this is all actually sounding pretty good. And like my chat is saying, 5v5 would feel very small because maps scale in most cases. Right, 5v5 in like Rialto or Havana right now would be really, there'd be a lot of space, but I think that's a good thing. With damage heroes being faster, they can use flanks more often. They can use more of the map, and I've actually said this in a couple of my blog posts. Maps in Overwatch kind of suck. Everyone uses the one route. They don't really use flanks. There's no reason to take a flank in Overwatch. Now when you can take a shield and point it this way, oh, someone flanked me. I have now dealt with the flank by just turning. Queue times would go down. People would live longer, like with less damage. I know it sounds very weird to say, oh, tanks giving less ult charge means that there's going to be a different number of tanks on each team, or could be. But I believe that's actually what it points to, because any other reason I can think of doesn't really make sense to make that big of a change. If you just wanted to lower ults in the game, fucking increase ult charge for everyone. But it's not. It's specifically against tank and damage. Supports still get their ults just as fast. And even then, you're just saving a little bit. It's not that big of a difference. It's not going to make ults happen that much less in the game. So there has to be another reason. Incentivize brawlers from going in and hitting people, not worrying about taking too much damage. Great. That I think that is the best reason so far. That's the best answer that I can come up with, besides the fact that there's going to be a different number of tanks or brawlers on each team. off tanks are pretty much brawlers anyway. Right. That's kind of where I'm at, and I usually don't buy into speculation and all of this stuff. But when I think of that, it would fix a lot of issues in Overwatch. A lot of the issues I have with the game, that would fix. Also, by making brawlers, and here's the nicest part, people are like, oh, well, in the 2-2-2 case, and you remove one, what do you make it? Do you remove one tank? Do you make tanks even more overpowered? Or do you remove one damage, which you wouldn't want to do because, now damage everyone wants to play. The whole idea is you make it a flex queue where 3 people can play damage if you want. 3 people can play brawler if you want. All are viable because they all deal damage, and you just have to play a different way. Cool. Great. You wouldn't have to rebalance all tanks in the fact that they would have to be now as strong as 2 tanks. How does this affect Junkrat strategy? No, it doesn't affect Junkrat strategy at all. Maybe a little bit. You'd basically just avoid tanks completely because you're faster than them now. The concept of 5v5 alone would heavily affect pro play. But here's the thing, Quartz. Who gives a shit? With an expansion, we can do this. That's the thing. Everyone's like, oh, but if you make it 5v5, this changes and this changes and that changes. That's Overwatch 1. It's Overwatch 2. The game has changed. There is no going back. This is the way forward. This is the power of an expansion. Right? Everyone has to abide by it. And everyone's like, well, it's a new game. Okay, let's do it. This is the power of an expansion. This is why I really like the expansion model rather than gaming as a service. Because you can just slam out something completely different and everyone has to accept it. It has very specific strengths, and if you leverage it as a company, it's great. Yeah, I think that's what would be best. Now, I'm going to do a little bit more talking. Magitech just looked at the time. It was hilarious. Wasn't that one of? I'm going to do a little more talking. She's like, "Fuck, what time is it?" And I'm not sure I'm going to cut this up for YouTube because I want to make it a little bit shorter and a little bit more to the point. But I think this is actually really important, and this is so this is an IGN article that was posted exactly when BlizzCon came out. And there was a lot of talk between Jeff Kaplan Ding Dong and this guy, and there's a lot of really good things to talk about. So IGN, I'm going to kind of paraphrase a lot of this. Enjoyed the presentation. Good job, buddy. We didn't get a release date. The idea is with Overwatch 2, when it's ready, when it's done. You talk about a lot of unfinished experience because of those. There's no point in putting a timescale to it. Yeah, the game's going to come out when it comes out. Don't push, especially in today's gaming climate. We've had No Man's Sky, and of course, most recently, Cyberpunk. Guys, don't put out an unfinished game thinking it'll be good. It's going to go to shit. So talking about this. Is there going to be a beta or closed beta phase for Overwatch 2? And he's like, no, at this point, not really. Well, then it's very likely we'll move to a closed beta. So I guess they will. Sorry, I reread that wrong. Still not determined if there's going to be an open beta or not. I have a hard time imagining that in the era we live in, there not being some sort of open beta happening. But nothing committed. So everything's going to be really vague answers because it's still out in the future. Sure, scale this presentation. You cover so many different areas. Is this turning into more of a sequel than you expected it to be? I think in a lot of ways we didn't communicate it at BlizzCon 2019 accurately. We tried to tell people this is a true sequel. This isn't some DLC. This is just something that should be a patch. And this is true. Everyone's just like, oh, PvE, they're going to shoot robots, who gives a fuck? And they're like, no, like, this is going to be a real game. Yeah, this is where he says there's a big difference between an expansion and a patch versus a sequel. This is where I'm saying, guys, there's a reason why you call it different things, and there's different business models to support these, and they have different strengths. He calls this a sequel, so he's using the strength of the sequel to make great changes in it. PvP, Overwatch, and Overwatch 2 will still be connected. So this is, I've been reading this a couple times, and a lot of people have been, like, misunderstanding this quote, and maybe I'm misunderstanding it, so I apologize if I get it wrong. But I assume that connection is still the plan for PvP. Overwatch and Overwatch 2 will still be connected. Of course, it's the same game. We feel like it's super important to keep the community together. That's one of our biggest goals. So, the whole thing about breaking up, like, and this is actually more for queue time more than anything, I imagine, is that whenever you divide the game up, like, I guess Counter-Strike's a good example of this. You have Source in 1.6, if I remember correct. I'm sorry, I wasn't a big Counter-Strike person, but they had Source in 1.6. You're actually dividing the community up. You don't want to have Overwatch 1 and Overwatch 2 and divide them up. So it's like, all right, everyone on the same game. It's so odd to me because if we were to rewind to BlizzCon 2019 and I were just to say, hey, we're making Overwatch 2, it's a sequel, it's going to have all this amazing PvE content, story missions, hero missions, and all new PvP maps. We're going to add new heroes, and we're going to change how a bunch of PvP works. See you later, Overwatch 1 people. Hope you buy Overwatch 2. The weirdest part is everybody would go, oh, they're just making a sequel. So, what Jeff is... And let me just read this. But the second you go, let's try to be a little bit cooler about what we do with the community. We actually get destroyed by that very community. It's something I hope in some ways influences people to think about how they want to be treated as a community. Maybe there are some ways that we can do things that are better, cooler, both from a gameplay standpoint, but also from a community standpoint. Because the reaction we got was very much like, no, treat us like we've always been treated before. And it's like, well, that's the behavior. That's what this behavior is going to lead to if we're not careful. So a lot of people complaining about this, and they're just like, oh, why did they go dark on Overwatch 2? Why didn't they make us part of the process? So what Overwatch did originally, and still does pretty much to this day, is they keep us in every part of the process, and they kind of tell us why they're doing things, and there's a very clear and open communication. Now with Overwatch 2, they just kind of wanted to tell us. They're just going to go, guys, look. This is what they could have done, and this is what he says over here, where he's like, hey fuck alls, we're making Overwatch 2, it's going to be pretty sweet, look at this rad shit. No details, but hope you fucking buy it, because it's going to be great. And everyone's like, oh man, I can't wait for that. But instead, they took the same approach that they did with the community always did, where they're just like, oh guys, look at this. This is what we're doing. This is how it's done. What do you think? That, they treated us like they always treat us. And the community kind of expected that for Overwatch 2 because of how the presentation went. They're like, oh, we're going to be hand in hand making this with you guys. But truly, they didn't. They went dark, right? They didn't do any of this stuff. So, the whole thing is like, they wanted to treat Overwatch 2, at least in 2019 BlizzCon, a little bit differently. Or at least they want to do in hindsight. They treated the community the same, and it kind of backfired on them. That's what he says, where the community, it's that very community we wanted to help. They came back at us, and they tried to destroy us. Like, it was bad. And you can see it right now, all of the negativity with Overwatch 2 and people bitching and complaining. It really goes to show that everyone in the community expected to be treated like they always did when it came to Overwatch 2. The truth is, they had no plans to, as we have seen. They didn't expect new expectations, correct. Because of how the presentation went, the community didn't expect new expectations on how they were going to be treated, so they just went to the default of, oh, this is how we've always been treated. I understand that the community made that distinction in the improper way. I can understand why they did that. And but I'm not about to blame Blizzard, be like, well, you should have set expectations differently. They said they were going to go into the dark about Overwatch 2. That's what they did. So I don't get what everyone's complaining about. Like, I completely understand where Jeff is coming from, and it sucks that everyone's just being a little bitch about things, but, you know, that's the community. It's like that Men in Black quote. A person is smart, but people are dumb. That's kind of how the community is. With that in mind, are you able to give a sense of what impact changes you're seeing? PvP, yada yada yada. I think there's two types of changes to think about. One that's purely... Okay, so this question, are you guys holding back stuff from Overwatch 1 because of Overwatch 2? And Jeff's like, no. Look, there's some stuff that technically we cannot do in Overwatch 1 because the new engine has to run on the new engine. The second stuff is purely psychological standpoint, a community's ability to accept and adapt to changes. What can we get away with in a patch in Overwatch 1? What does the community accept as a massive change that can only come with a sequel? Again, this is exactly what I said. Expansions set different expectations. They cannot make tanks into brawlers in the current Overwatch game because the game changes too much. There would be no going back. People would be like, I want to play Overwatch 1 again, yada, yada, yada. There'd be too much of that. For the changes they have in store, which are going to be big, which again supports the idea of 5v5, and that tank and brawler are going to be, or brawler and damage are going to be the same queue, and it's going to be a flex queue, it's going to require a big thing, and that's what this does. Both those things are in consideration. A general thought of philosophy is we shouldn't be arbitrary hold things for Overwatch 2 that would benefit Overwatch. So they're still going to release stuff that they develop in Overwatch 2 for Overwatch 1 if it applies to it. If it doesn't apply to it, then they won't. It's very simple. They say about Priority Pass. Tied to Overwatch 2, either thematically, psychologically, because of player change. Yes, yes, yes. Engine improvements. Basically, yeah. If they can port it to Overwatch 1, they will. Even if you think, oh, changing all the stats on the tank can be done in Overwatch 1. No, it cannot, because it changes what tanks are. And if you change the tank role, the entire game changes. Remember my last blog post where I go, guys, this is not a small minor change. This isn't even a big major patch. This is a new game. The changes coming to Overwatch 1 that will be part of Overwatch 2. Yada, yada, yada. This plan is to have the two PvP audiences converge. So this is it. Overwatch 1 and Overwatch 2, PvP, everyone gets everything, same thing. Don't think there's something different. Is there going to be crossplay? Maybe, but basically, guys, you have no idea how much bullshit red tape there is with businesses allowing other people to play against their stuff. Are you allowed on their network? Are you going to open up these ports, like stuff like this? Are your networks, visible to my network? Shit like that. I don't think I quite grasp how expansive you're aiming to make the hero missions. So this is where people are like, people's expectations about the hero missions was basically an event like we have now. That's not the case, guys. This is an entire new game. And they're just talking about the PvE and how they build hero missions to be unique every single time. That's cool. Okay, so this is where they're talking about the axis of change. Yeah. We kind of talked about this in the video. I love this quote. The beautiful part of Null Sector and Talon don't go to Reddit and complain when Mercy has 5-man res. I watched ML7's reaction to BlizzCon, and he was really salty and cry about it. And he's like, man, Jeff has to get over this. He's a game director. He should be expected to take this level of shit. Blah, 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 blah. And it just goes to really show how disconnected he is from actual game development, where, like, look, man, I understand people don't like certain things, but if every time something wrong happens or something you don't agree with, you go to the forums and just bitch about it constantly, the devs are just going to tune you out. That's all there is to it. And I like how sassy Jeff is, because he's just like, this is the second time I really noticed Jeff's sass, because in a Stylosa video, when they released Brigitte, Jeff goes, the community wouldn't let us nerf their precious dive heroes, so we made Brig. Be careful what you wish for. Where he's just like, fuck you guys. Like, I'll be vengeful. And I'm on board with that. Like, alright, if you guys say we can't balance dive heroes, then fuck it. We're going to introduce this thing, and guess what, Dive? You're done. because you wouldn't let us do what we needed to do. So we did it another way, and now you hate it even more. I'm on board with that. Yeah, basically give proper feedback. Don't just bitch about it. But 5-man res was bullshit. I mean, come on, no one's gonna, not understand that. The tinkering element, super yada yada. Yeah, PvP. I've stated this before, and I've talked about it with other game developers. In PvE, there are some things that are horribly broken in PvP and feel terrible in PvP. Like if you're on the enemy team and Mercy resurrect all 5 players after you have killed them all. It felt terrible. And that's why we had to change it. The beautiful part is that they don't go to Reddit to complain. The other things like crowd control abilities, it doesn't matter. Like when you're doing them, it feels fantastic, but if you're on the terrible end, it feels terrible. PvE, go wild. Do whatever you want. It's crazy. It's supposed to be overpowered. It's supposed to be insane. It's supposed to be just crazy shit all the time. Perfect. That's what PvE is made for. I call it out in the PvE Overwatch 2 blog post I had yet again. I don't know how many times I got to tell you guys this, but I wrote a blog post about all my points pretty much years ago. One of my things with Overwatch 2 I called out was that, hey, Overwatch 2 will get a lot of the people that don't want to play competitive but still want to play Overwatch out of our hair. Yeah, it's going to be it's not nice to get rid of these people, but it's good for the game for casuals who don't want to deal with the competitiveness and the balance issues. Another mode for them to deal with things, and not quick play. I mean, like literally another mode, which is PvE to kind of get their Overwatch lore, to enjoy the game, to immerse themselves in the intellectual property, stuff like that. Like that's great, and they can now go to their own side of the playground and do their thing over there. That's not a bad thing to have that. It's a good thing, and it will allow Blizzard to make better changes on the PvP side. Talent trees, yep. Favorite PvE builds, I don't really care about going over those, but that's where Junkrat has, 2 grenade launchers. That's cool. Tinkering with PvP version of Reinhardt, yada yada yada. Have you unchecked yourself from how you were forced to think about PvP before? We have a lot more tools in our toolkit. Some of the creativity, they're a little bit more creative and do stuff like this. Reinhardt PvP changes, they're coming from more place of just watching and listening to player feedback, and also watching what people like and don't like about the tank role. I don't know if they'll do this or not, but even just the thought about renaming the Overwatch 2 to Brawler instead of Tank, and it resets expectations. This is what an expansion or a sequel is allowed to do, but if we just rename Tank into Brawler now, no one would give a shit. It's incumbent in the game of Overwatch 1 to log in and have somebody like, we need a shield. You have to play shield. Don't take that shield down. And we're like, well, I didn't feel like just holding left trigger and right button all night. This wasn't my idea of how I wanted to play Overwatch tonight, but I'm being forced to. So this is actually a really important quote, because this directly talks about one-tricking in a way. If I want to play Overwatch and I want to play Junkrat, fuck you, I'm playing Junkrat. Now, if this agrees with some people, all right, you're fine. But if it doesn't agree with people, they get upset. The same can be said for, Reinhardt. Basically, people are being forced to do something they don't want to do, and it sucks. Right? And it doesn't matter if you want to do a one trick or you don't want to, you want to play something other than tank or play an off tank. It's the concept that other people dictate how you play, and you have no say in how you play the game. This makes people not want to play Overwatch at all. And this is really forced by... It is forced by design, but also the community and how much of assholes they are. So we're trying to think a little bit and redefine what PvP needs. Hey, we're not Overwatch 1 anymore, we're in Overwatch 2, so it's okay to be different. In fact, how many years are we going to play the same game before it's time to move on and experience something different and allow us to evolve, which we think is good. Connection of PvP and PvE. I hope the PvE side is available in the workshop. That would be immense. That would be very important, and it would allow for a lot of modding and just amazing community-driven stuff. If they did that, Overwatch would be a leader in a lot of genres if they did that. I'll just say that. People would make Overwatch MOBAs. They would make Overwatch everything. Moving to part of the game, story mode. We're just going to go over story mode. I like stories. I mean, I'm going to play it. I'm going to buy Overwatch 2. I don't care what anyone thinks. And I do love story modes. So it's going to be cool. Will we play story missions solo or offline? It's kind of both. Yeah, they're probably going to have... You can play with AI, but it's not officially decided yet. Sure, whatever. Timeline is off the table. There's a sense of when more people might hear more from Overwatch 2. So this is where they say, hey, look, when we announced Overwatch 2, we were very good. We were very explicit with the audience. I don't know if ever remembered this, but we literally said we're going to go dark. And we said we were going to talk about it at the next Blizzcon. After our strategy of Blizzcon in February is to be more communicative. I don't know if I can officially commit to a monthly updates on Overwatch 2, but we will be more communicative. We want to be careful. I think there's the right time to get the audience hyped and to build launch. There's times when it's like, hey, that was kind of not cool because it was too early and we're not ready to have this yet. So I want to be very transparent with people. I'm really glad that this discussion happened of, hey, don't expect Overwatch 2 or Diablo 4 this year, because I think that helps set people's expectations. So if we do anything in March or April, they're not like, oh my god, this means we're going to have a beta in May and it's going to be released in June. It's like, no, it's out there, but that's not happening. So let's get all our expectations aligned. Yeah, no, so me personally, if anyone, again, how I feel and think about this, I can play Junkrat for another 3-4 years. In fact, I could probably play Junkrat for another 5 years. Why can I do this? Because I was I was raised on Quake. I was not born into Quake. I am not, the Doomslayer or whatever it is. I was raised on Quake, and I was raised in when gaming wasn't a service. We got Quake, you modded it, and you liked it. That's all there was to it. So I played competitive Quake for like 5 or 6 years. That's all I did. I played Quake 2 so much, and when Quake 2 went under, I played Quake Live, or Quake 3. And then they moved it to Quake Live, and I played it a lot. I played all these games a tremendous amount of time. And while there were mods to kind of swap it up and make things more unique and differentiate it a little bit, it was still the same old game. It was still Rocket Rail Shotgun. So I'm fine with playing this game for longer periods of time. I got no problem with that. I'm all about that mastery of a very specific skill set. You may hate me for being a Junkrat one trick, but I love specifying on something and getting good at it. That's how I work. That's what I do in life. That's just me. So I'm going to be here. I'm still going to be doing this stuff. I will wait for Overwatch 2. I'm not going to give them too much shit for it. I'm not going to be like everyone else and, bitch about it and cry about it. So I'm if what I say is correct, in that being it going to 5v5, Brawler and damage makes the flex queue, and then there's the support queue. Tanks go to Brawlers. Guy, this is what I would want with Overwatch. Everything I've ever written, it feels really good because everything I've ever written has been right. And I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm the motherfucking brass section right now because I'm tooting every goddamn horn I can. Because I nailed it. The last post was days, but years before, everything I've been saying has been coming true. And I'm happy that it's kind of like a validation for me personally. But we'll see. And if it is what I think it's going to be, and they fix the issues that I see fundamentally with the game, I think Overwatch 2 is going to be amazing PvP. I think it's going to be great. I'm actually a little bit hopeful, because they're going to be doing such massive changes, which Side effect makes me very unhopeful for anything big to happen in Overwatch 1. So we're going to have the same feeling game, and they could do balance tweaks. They could nerf Echo, they could nerf Widow and Hanzo, they could nerf headshots. The basic feel of Overwatch, and I had a really big argument with one of the Junkrat Council members about like things in general, and I'm like, the general feel of Overwatch is not going to change. Which is fine, that's cool, that's what we know and love, and that's what we're going to play. But when Overwatch 2 hits, expect that feeling to change. It's not going to flow the same. Yeah, no, this is. I think we're good. I think this is a very good spot. I'm just hoping that it keeps players that really dislike PvP and PvE, so that way we get more quality games. Oh my god. I have to find it. Sorry. I'm actually looking for my blog post where I say, hey, it's actually going to get people out of here. It's actually not that, it's not that post. Oh, here it is. I'll post it in chat. So JC0 says, "Oh man, I hope this keeps people into that," and that's actually what I say here. New game that specifically targets lore, missions, and PvE would be perfect for these players, meaning it would get them out of Overwatch multiplayer and into a new game. While a bit of scummy business model, selling single player and multiplayer separate is great because you can balance them separately, unlike other games that have tried to balance PvE and PvP at the same time. This gets the casual players out of the multiplayer game, so Blizzard can make proper adjustments to heroes without upsetting these dedicated and delicate players. October 6, 2019. I fucking called it. Boom! Drop the pen. That's all I got. I don't want to drop my mic. It's a little expensive. Didn't want to do that. Wow, you didn't read that one? Well, it's okay, Jason. No one wants to read all this shit. But yeah, no, I call it out. Everything that's happening, I've called it out. If you go to any YouTube video that's analyzing Overwatch 2 and BlizzCon, I've wrote a blog post on what they say is good or bad about the game. Years ago. So, cool. But that's it. Is there any other questions, any other remarks? Damn her thighs. Jesus.